Hey y'all.
Afternoon.
Hello. Hey.
Hello. All right. So,
Cool.
have y'all done a group check-in before?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. Usually I would say I don't have an agenda and let y'all drive most of it, but for this one, just because we told y'all we're gonna like check in on some things on the project, I would like to see a couple things. I'd love to see your diagram, whether you use dbdesigner.net, and I'd love to just hear about your like tables and relationships that you came up with so far. Yeah, so let's start with Michael, your group.
Oh, um,
I will share screen.
okay, I can go. I can share too.
No worries. Okay. Cool. Can everybody see the screen?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. And let me know if I need to make any of this bigger or anything. But here are our little charts. So we have a brewery and a tea house as the parents, and then the child of both respective would be tea and then beer, or teas and beers. Um, And then, yeah, we have set columns so that way we can meet the criteria and also have different elements that we can play around with. Um, and then, yeah, I'm sorry, what was the second thing?
No, that was it. I wanted to see like your I guess they were kind of combined. I asked you for two things that I can see from this diagram. So this looks great. Yeah, I love this. This one, like real world, makes sense. They're kind of related as like entities in the world, so that's kind of cool. And then yeah, the relationship is great. Um, cool. Have y'all done any active record yet?
Not
No.
really. We set up these last night so that way we have our tables in Postigo and we set some of that up. And then, yeah, today we were going to actually go through and like do those user stories and get all of that starting to flow.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Well, we're just gonna like pseudocode out the stories, so then we can kind of see a pattern and kind of get what what you want us to actually do in the Rails app. Um, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. I think that's a good plan forward. Once you kind of have this set up, this is like very like kind of pinnacle to doing everything else. So all of this looks solid. Looks like you've got like the requirements that we're looking for columns and such. So cool. All right, yeah, let's flip over or go ahead.
Sorry. Is this okay? I figured I was trying to think of like because I feel like that's just like a really like shoehorned way to connect these two tables. Would there be a better way to do this besides like attaching everything, like attaching every beer or every tea to a tea house ID?
This
Or
is
would
how
that
it's done.
okay?
Yeah,
Cool.
this is how you do it so that so that you can easily reference the the one and the one to many or the parent table.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, cheers.
Cool. All right, Catherine, Phil,
I
love to
got
see
You?
yours.
Yeah. You want to share, Catherine? Awesome.
yes. Okay, so our overarching theme is Disney. So Disney has theme parks which have rides and it has resorts which have vacationers.
Awesome, love it. That makes perfect sense to me. Um, cool. Let's see, resort ID, theme park ID. That looks great. Got some date time columns, Boolean, integer. Okay, yeah, that looks good to me. What is varchar? Oh, is that just that's just how you have it on this designer, but I assume it's a
I
string
think
on the
we
schema.
figured out we had to use strings in Rails.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I like the relationship too. Real world makes sense. And yeah, similar to uh, Michael and Isabel. The relationships make sense too. Any active record that y'all have done so far?
Yeah. So we started with just I don't know, where should I start?
Wherever you want.
Okay, let's see, what did we do? We have we started our controllers here. We migrated this schema. We have model and then just the views for resorts, and haven't gotten there yet with theme parks.
Cool. Can I see the schema?
Yes.
I think I might have one question here, if that's cool, if this is good timing.
Yep, absolutely.
Related to like how we defined when we did our migrations for these, we like ended up with duplicate, like there's an auto-generated ID, then we also use this like resort ID that we used in our database designer. So we have like duplicate IDs where there's an actual primary key ID. And we also have like resort underscore ID. Should we like redo our migration to get rid of that resort underscore ID in this case?
Yes. So do you mind just scrolling? So resorts are connected to people, right? Yeah. Vacationers. Okay. Yeah. So just a couple of things. So your vacationers table doesn't need a vacationer ID. Your vacationers table would need a resort ID, right? Because a vacationer belongs to a resort. All right.
Yeah.
And so the each like so line 47, line 38, anywhere where you have this like theme park ID or vacationer ID on that table, that's redundant, and I would get rid of that.
Okay. And I didn't think we realized it would auto make a primary key of an ID. Like I think we thought we had to put it in. So that's fine. And then we have, yeah, we have the resort ID and the theme park ID for.
Yep. And I can tell just by looking at the schema that this migration is not quite set up correctly. So like, even though you created this column that has this theme park ID column that's an integer, this will show up as a foreign key in general. And then you'll also see an index where like the table will index on the foreign key, and I understand that you don't probably know what that means, but like I am like expecting it in the schema and I'm not seeing it, which is my clue to say like, okay, the way that you did these migrations, you created a column, but the migration didn't actually connect the tables. And so there's a specific syntax and a specific type of migration that you need to run in order for that to happen. And you'll see like similar to like how in the date time columns, it says null false. After your theme park ID column, like here in the rides, it will say comma foreign key true if you've run the migration correctly. So that's where I can see like, okay, yeah, that exactly. It'll be like, hey, foreign key true here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So that's like, yep, that's what you're looking for to see if you've done that correctly. But like, here's the things that I'll say is like, yes, this table is the table that should have the theme park ID attached to it. So that is correct. Like the way you're thinking about it is correct. And then but the implementation is not quite there.
Okay.
Cool.
Is that, Tim, is that in tomorrow's lesson, the one-to-many? Will that syntax be gone over? Or should we just like look it up on our own?
I would say like my thing is like I think it's a better use of your time to go and try it on your own today than to just be like, oh, it's coming, so we do something else. Like I think you will have a better learning experience if y'all go try and like run that migration today, and it's coming tomorrow.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
That was super helpful for us. So thanks, Phil and Catherine.
Yep,
Yeah, my next question was to ask you guys to share your screen again to show us what you did. So I had one other question
Okay.
on just like project setup.
Yep.
I've seen a few questions about like setting up different things, and I think this is along the same lines. We haven't gone over stuff, and we're trying to figure it out as we go. But I've seen people ask about like Heroku, and I don't see that in the project's description for this one at all. Is that a future project that we'll be dealing with that, not this one?
That's correct. Yeah. So in the past, the first project, you have had to push to Heroku and like set that all up. And what we found is like we don't have a formal class on Heroku, and it's like the first thing that we ask you all to do. And really, what that is like following a step-by-step tutorial and configuring Heroku to your Rails app. And we just didn't feel like that was part of what we wanted y'all to be spending time on in these first 2 weeks. Like when everything is new, it's like we don't need to throw like a new thing that we don't even teach y'all. So that was like our thinking there. But yes, it's coming down the road.
Thank you.
Yep.
So does that mean, Tim, that we just need to, are we only like, for this project, doing it off the local hosts is all that's what you're aiming for? Like what you want to see? Okay, cool.
Yep. So you'll have like you're sharing the repo, right? And you both have access to the shared repo, and then you're making your changes like with your Git workflow and like pulling and pushing and that. And you both have, separate development and test databases on your local machines, and the only way that you're ever running your app is locally, so you're never running it like in the cloud, which is like what Heroku enables, but you're only ever running it locally on one of your machines.
Cheers, thanks for that clarity.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. And yeah, let's switch back over to y'all, Michael, and anything that y'all wanted to like ask about kind of like offhand, or anything coming up in your directory or app structure that you wanted to talk about.
No, to be honest, we were using a lot of our time to like go through and just get comfortable with all the steps as well. Instead of just jumping straight into the project and being like completely lost, we kind of wanted to get a feel of like the skills involved. So we're moving through like some of the exercises and going over like task manager with each other and just making sure that we're both like on the same page and working in the same direction. And yeah, our plan was to kind of get into the thick of it today.
Cool. No, that's totally fine with me. Like this check-in, I would say like is like a little early on, honestly. But the reason behind that is we want to make sure like that you're set up to kind of approach these user stories correctly. And here's what I'll say is like you both are with the way that you've set up your relationships. The things that you need to do that maybe you haven't done yet is run the correct migration so that things are connected under the hood, like in the data at the data level, so that then you can basically like act from your parent, you can go to your child, from your children, you can go to your parent, and that like all happens with active record helper methods. And that's going to be like necessary for some of the stories that are like, I want to say after user story 9, actually no, user story 7 is the first time that you're going to need that to be set up correctly, because that's the parent child's index. So it's like nested under this parent, here are all of the children, and that requires the connection in the database to be correct and the IDs to be correct.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, and so I think like y'all are in a great place to attack user story 1, each of you, because like that's like what we did today, and that's like probably going to feel better than anything else. And what I'll say is also the all of the parent stories are very similar to what you did in Task Manager. Once you get to the child, to the parent child stories, that's the first time where like you actually have to like use your connection. Cool. All right, yeah, I mean, I'll open it up for the rest of the time. Whatever y'all have or want to talk about, we can chat about.
I'm just gonna say, Isabella and Mike, your concepts are very you. I feel like it really reflects your personality. Very creative.
Yeah, I really like tea a lot.
I love a good beer.
I love both of those things. Two of the best beverages in the world. What was I gonna say? Oh, actually, can we take a look at your schema file, Michael or Isabel, and just give it a look?
I am muted. Okay. Yeah. Here we go.
Cool. Yep. And so so what it looks like to me is you have similarly, you have well, it looks like on your T's table, you don't have a T house ID yet, and that's okay because if you run the correct like migration syntax from the command line, it will kind of like it will place that column on the table correctly for you, which is good. And then what I see also is that brewery and beers is kind of similar to how Phil and Catherine have their setup, where it's like, oh, you have this brewery ID column, but they're not quite connected. So you'll have to like look up the syntax to do that. But yeah, you're in a good place.
Is there like a convention of how to do that? Like, is it best just to let the migration, when you establish the relationship, let that just populate itself, or is it best to kind of like set it up and then just let it connect? Like,
It'll be
what's
so the simplest and most like conventional way to do it is you generate a migration from the command line that uses a specific syntax to reference another table, and then if you've named things properly, then when you run that and it generates the migration, it basically will generate that migration file for you, and it'll all be kind of ready to run and filled out properly. And then the next thing you would do is just migrate it, and then you'll see that column populate on the table. Easier said than done. Obviously, y'all haven't done that before, but there's an example in the lesson plan tomorrow, and it's like one of the most common things that you have to do in Rails. So like if you Googled it and went to the guides, there's also examples there.
cool? Cheers. At this point, I don't have any like burning questions. I just think we need to get our hands dirty. But
Yeah.
Isabel, do you have any?
I guess this is kind of a vague question. Is that command that you're talking about, is that the Rails G migration, and then you do like the add table name to table name and then the references?
That's it.
Okay, cool.
Yep, you're on the right track with that. That's what you'll want to do. Yeah, and here's the thing, y'all. Like, I'm not gonna like keep you in this check-in longer than you want to be here. Like, these are totally for you. You know, pick my brain until you're ready to like be gone, and then go on your way.
The way
If you,
no, you
you
go.
go, you go.
Okay. So the way to update or edit a table, you do have to run another migration, and then you label it as update, right? Like you'll do update and then the table name and then like the column that you're adding to.
Depends on what you're doing. So like, it's not. I don't think that the syntax is update. I feel like it's like add or remove, or like something in that class name is like the action that you're trying to do to the table. Because it's like add column, remove column. Yeah, update column or something might be a thing for like one of the things. Like if you wanted to like update a column to be a different data type, that might be one of the ways that you could name that class. Or it's like create the table, delete, drop table. So they're like, I'm not positive, like I don't have all that syntax in my head, but it's like first step, like what am I trying to do? Am I like removing a column, adding a column, adding a foreign key? And then once I know what I want to do, then I have the tools to Google like, hey, what is that syntax that I'm going to need to like call this migration so that it generates properly. And another thing to note though, with generating migrations, you can call that class whatever you want, and basically it'll give you a blank slate where only thing in the migration is def change and then end. And then within that change block, or change method, I should say, then within that, then you can write all the syntax in. Like, it's nice when they generate it for you if you name things properly on the command line, but like that's not like the only way to do it. You can go in that migration file and type the syntax in that you find online too.
Okay. And then I'm sure this answer is no, it doesn't matter. But so then that will create new migration files, and it doesn't matter how many migration files we have, right?
Yep, doesn't matter. That's like unlimited.
So apart from like getting acquainted with Rails and understanding how these relationships are working and how to get it all going and set up, what are you like really looking for us to grok in this like first couple of weeks? Like, because I feel like there's so much going on, and I feel like I don't really know what has more weight and what doesn't.
Yep.
So do you have like just like what would be like a keystone theme? Like if you get this, you can like build out from there, and you'll be sweet as in mod 2, and like you'll get a good grasp of it, and when you go into the workforce, like that's like essential.
Totally. So the number, like I'd say, like I'll scope this down, and we're going to be building as the mod goes, but the number 1 and 2 things here are like how your relational database like connects things together, and how you design your schema basically, and then how you write migrations to alter your schema. Those are like those kind of I'm combining into one. So that's like the data level, because we're in the back end program, right? So like data modeling is the thing. And then the number 2 of this is CRUD, right? So how can you take a resource like a beer or a brewery and CRUD it out, right? Like be able to create it from your app, be able to read all the data from your app, be able to update and be able to delete. Like, how do you CRUD that data going through that? And that's why, there's that ×2 thing. And that's why you do it for every parent, you do it for every child, because we want y'all to get those reps, because that's like the core of the mod.
Awesome. Super helpful. Cheers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim, I got one kind of along the same lines of like at this point in the project, are you comfortable or like expecting us to not be TDDing like the CRUD, the first few user stories, like just like tackle these things with what we know, sort of,
Exactly.
and don't worry about our spec just yet?
Exactly. Yeah, we're not expecting y'all to write
Sweet.
tests until you've had some testing lessons, which I believe are tomorrow and Friday.
Sweet.
Yeah, because that's like a brand new everything, right? Brand new syntax, brand new testing framework. That's going to take like, a little bit more startup time,
Cool.
just because like everything's going to be new there. So yeah, that's why I wanted to show today in class like the very like browser driven approach, because it's not that different than the test driven approach, except that one you get feedback in the terminal, the other you get feedback in the browser on the web page. So like both are similar in that regard. Yeah.
Are we expected to have a route?
I don't think that it's an expectation in this project, and it's like nice to have. It's like a nice to have, not a need to have, because like you're always gonna be going somewhere. So even if you like just route to like a parent index or something like that, like that's fine, because we haven't defined it. Or you could say like, I want to create my own, like maybe that could be like an extension or something. Like, all right, like I want to create, I've gotten all this functionality, now I want to create like a welcome page that has some links on it so I can easily navigate to these places. But yeah, we didn't put that in, so it's not like a requirement.
Got one since we have a few minutes.
Cool.
This is like high level beyond what we're doing right now. I'm just curious, like down the road in a Rails app, where does like the front end of the app live? Like down the road, if you have like a framework that, say in Mod 4, when like I watched the demo comp yesterday, like they have all these other technologies that are inside the app. And I was just curious, like, where does that live in? Is it in this file structure or like in somewhere completely different?
Yeah, so at this point, the front end is the views, right? Like the views are your front end and it's all one full stack framework, but Rails is more focused on the back end and it has the capability to add in like JavaScript, CSS, all of the things that you would need for the front end to do certain things. It has the ability to do that. And here's, I've seen it there. So there's not just like one answer for this. It's like you can keep it as a Rails, what we call a monolith, and everything lives in this one Rails app. Or what I've seen at the last job that I was at, we had a Rails monolith that then got turned into just a Rails backend that had API endpoints that served up the data to a React front end that then consumed the data and then like took it all from there. So like there are multiple like,
Yeah.
and that's just one of many design patterns that you could use. So there's not like a there's not like a one answer to this. It's like there's a couple of ways that you can approach it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had a quick question about the, again, not really in the scope of this project, but the like index.html.erb, how many, can you just keep tagging on languages? Like,
Like
is that how that works? Or
yeah, I think I know what you're asking. So you're saying like, can I just, since I can just do HTML.erb, can I just like also add in whatever I want? No. Rails is Rails is kind of set up to like expect your HTML.erb files to live in your views folder and then like execute that way. So unfortunately, I would say fortunately no, because that could get messy quick.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
This is also like a non-project related question, but just looking through the calendar and like the subjects of the lectures, and I compare that to Mod 1, there's not as much. So I was wondering, like, what is the direction of Mod 2? Like, because like, are we just building out from where we are and getting really, really good at, like what you said with like understanding relational databases, getting the migrations, the schemas, but adding in like many to many. And then like, I'm sure there's lots and lots of layers that we're not aware of, but is this just like getting a lot of depth there? Or is it going to be like, that might be confusing myself if you tell me.
No, you're not. I can give you it. I mean, here's where I'll like point you is like the learning goals page. Like me and Brian took a lot of time to like really try and narrow that down and get that defined properly. So like that's your base level. But I mean, to put it in like layman's terms, it's like get comfortable with the base functionality of a Rails app with that diagram that we showed today of like MVC plus like the database and the routes and the browser, and so the entire request response cycle, like get comfortable with that cycle and all of the components that are part of that cycle. And then because this like we are back end focused, it's going to be like get comfortable with active record to do more complex queries on our database. So that is like going to be like a whole nother kind of component. And then also bring in some of that mod 1 stuff, like where you're using like plain old Ruby objects to do some data modeling using classes that way, and you're recognizing some patterns of like, oh, like I see why I like encapsulate all of this model logic over here in the model. I see where, oh, here, look, we're using this same active record query on multiple classes. This is a good pattern for inheritance. And like pulling some of those concepts through that y'all learned in Mod 1, and then also being able to test thoroughly and in a meaningful way so that you can rely on your application doing the things that you intend for it to do, and it's well tested so that when it changes, inevitably when it changes, we catch any like mistakes that or oversights that we might have that we might make because our tests are written well.
Awesome, that's real helpful. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, for sure.
One thing to kind of piggyback off that with this last minute, that message yesterday morning from the front ender saying it was very confusing for me in the sense of I didn't think we're learning JavaScript this
You're
month.
not.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I was very confused.
Yeah. That's yeah. I never know what students are gonna say, but like I don't want to like jump in and like correct him because he seemed like he was coming from like a place of like being sweet and like nice, and I didn't want to like rain on his parade. But you are not learning JavaScript this month. Yeah. All right, y'all. That's it. I'm gonna get on to the next group, but thanks for the engagement and the questions. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey everyone, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. What do I want to say? Let me take a 2-minute break, and the first thing I'm gonna ask for y'all for is just like your schema designers. So if you want to like have those pulled up, where that's what we're gonna look at first is like we'll look at the schema file, and then we'll look at like the design that you created through that schema designer site. All right, be back in 2.
So if we have already shot ourselves in the foot by doing this, but we basically have two separate schemas at this point. So I mean, we can share like one at a time. I have no idea how that's gonna like screw us up when it comes time to merge it, but that might be a learning experience.
Yeah, that's like that's okay, and like that's you. So to be clear, you only will have one schema file, but you basically both have changes on your local copies that are not yet like together yet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like, well, it kind of depends, but I don't know. It might create a merge conflict, but as long as all the migration files kind of come together and then you can migrate everything to like update to the current version, you should be all right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yep.
But yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, so we're doing like the idea was kind of like a conference center or like a convention center where we've got like a conference parent with like a presentation child. And we can go through this and then talk about the other parent child set after this.
Yep. Yeah, this looks good though. This like makes sense to me from a real world perspective, and I can see like the one-to-many like coming through with that conference ID on the presentation. So that looks good to me. You've got, a couple of integer, or you've got, a couple of integer columns, date, time, and Boolean. So that's all I want to see.
Okay. I did want to ask about, as far as date time, like it seems pretty standard with all of the examples that we've looked at that you would use like a timestamp for like a created at and updated at. Like, is that something that we should expect to have with every model, or is that?
It's not expected, but it is useful. Like it's
Okay.
useful to just have timestamps on any like model that you have, because you get to, it's basically like you get that data. That data doesn't take up a ton of memory and like isn't going to be like performance intensive, and you always have the ability to like sort things by when they're most recently updated or when they were most recently created, like, so that's like just like something that you then get if you have those columns. And there's other like date time use cases that are not timestamp columns that are like specific to whatever resource that you have. So yeah, but
So if we like added it to a conference in this case, I mean, we'd end up having like 4 date times, but
yeah,
it
that's
could
fine.
still potentially be useful to have those separate. Yeah. Okay.
100%. Yeah, exactly. So I think like
Okay.
all of those 4 columns would be useful in that case.
Okay. Cool. And then you wanted to look, I don't have it locally for me, but the other side of it, let me see if I can pull up. V, I don't think I have the latest version. Do you want to share that?
Sure.
Oh, just kidding. You just sent it.
No,
Oh.
I sent you the design. You were looking for the schema?
Yeah. Although the link that you sent me is totally blank, so I don't know if there's like a permissions thing.
Okay. Tim, do you need to see the other scheme, the other design?
Yeah, I love, like, it doesn't, like, you might as well just share V, because let's just avoid the technical difficulties of the link sharing if we can.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet, no.
Oh. Right now.
Yeah, I got you now.
Yeah, so for mine, the parents' meeting rooms and has many meetings.
Yep, that makes sense.
The Boolean integer datetime.
Yep, that looks good to me, and that like makes sense from a real world perspective as well. A meeting room would have many meetings, so, and a meeting would belong to a meeting room. Cool. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, and then I just want to see the file, the schema file, to see like where y'all are at there.
Do you mind guiding me to it?
Yeah, do a Command P, and then start typing schema, and then you can hit enter. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so you've got the meeting rooms created, but not the meetings yet, right?
Not the meetings yet. Yeah, I think we're very confused about the order of stuff that we should, like what order we should be following here.
Yeah, and I would expect that at this point, because there's like a lot of moving parts here and you haven't really gotten you know, like clear direction on what to do first. But I would say like table, you can think of table creation and schema design as basically like a separate entity that can kind of be done on its own, separate of having to like configure the Rails app to show things in the web, right? So like just designing my database and like creating tables and then connecting those tables, like that is like a piece of this puzzle that can kind of be done in isolation.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't, for commit purposes and testing, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. And then, oh, do you have anything else that you want to look at?
No, this was it. This was all I was looking for.
So for the testing, so the way that mine, we did it differently, me and Gus, but the way that I'm doing mine is testing features first. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's totally okay. And to be honest, I didn't expect y'all, or we as instructors didn't expect y'all to really have tests the first few days. Like you're going to have them at some point in this project, like there's a whole section, but this is like one of those things where we were kind of we weren't going to be you know, expecting them this soon. I mean, it's great that you have them, and I don't want to say like anything other than like, great, like this looks good, this is how you're going to be doing it the majority of this mod. And we haven't had a lesson on them yet, like at all. So it would be okay if you all like used the browser similarly the way I did today in class to kind of like build out functionality until we have the testing lessons. But just know you'll whatever you build out in the browser, you'd still have to like eventually test. So this is great. Like you're kind of like getting ahead of where you need to be. So that's good.
Okay. I think for me, oh, is there anything that like you do not have to worry about testing this? Because I think that me and Gus want to test everything.
Yeah. So yes, you don't have to worry about testing the controllers in isolation, because you would never like need like a controller specific test, because the controller is so integral to any of these feature tests that it's basically like the controller has to, the controller does get tested via a feature test that has to like, you know, move through the controller in various ways.
Okay, so just to make sure I understood what you said, for this project, that step by step of like build the test, build the class, commit, and things like that, that won't matter and it won't count towards the grade.
That's not correct.
Mhm.
So we are going to expect you to test this project completely. I just didn't expect you all to have test quite yet, just because we haven't shown you any of that syntax and it's all new. But
I meant the order of stuff. Like, you know how in mod 1 you needed to.
yeah, okay,
Yeah, that
yep,
doesn't.
that doesn't matter. We're not going to like check and make sure you like wrote every test before you wrote any like code. So yeah, don't worry about that.
That was it for me. Anything from you, Gus?
No, I think you pretty much answered what I was going to ask.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Yeah, of course. All right, Joe and Sam, let's take a look at y'all's.
Cool. Sam, I got your link as well, so I'll share.
All right, cool. Thanks.
That's mine.
Cool.
For the
Yep, author has many books. That looks great. Cool.
yeah. So I don't know about the time. I kind of forced the timestamp.
No, that's okay. That's like I think like the column that the designer gives you by default is like date or time or date range, something like that. But like that's okay, as long as like this is a tool that's meant to like basically be like your pseudocoding of your database connections and columns, right? So that you have something like pseudocoded visually that you can look at. So this is great.
Okay. I got Sam's right here. Go ahead, Sam.
Cool.
Yeah, so similar. Yeah, pretty straightforward. It's just a connection between roasters and like the coffee bean, like every batch that they send out essentially, and just treat the batch ID as like a serial number of it. Yeah, that's about it. They're not related in any way, but like you mentioned, or these relations aren't related to the book and author. But I think we're allowed to have it pretty vague and diverge away from each other, right?
That's correct.
As long as okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to make sure.
So the couple of things that I want to point out on this, just this connection here. So you have this like store ID pointing back to a store ID on roasters, and that's not quite gonna work in the way that we set it up in Rails. So you have to add these things. Rails adds them by default, which is the ID column, which is your primary key of every table, has an ID column, which ends up being the primary key. So what we would want is an ID column on coffee beans that was called like roaster ID, that then pointed back to the primary key on the roasters table that was just called ID. So we would want like a roaster ID on coffee beans table pointing to the primary key on the roasters table, which would be called ID. And that's just like the convention of how we set things up in Rails. And I would push y'all to like, yeah, like you can get this to work, and it's going to be painful because certain things that Rails does by default are not going to work. So I would say like I'll push you like stick to the convention here and name things like where roasters has this primary key of ID, and then coffee beans has the foreign key of roaster ID that points to it.
Sounds good. Yeah, I was thinking about that when you're making your tables earlier. You never had to put in an ID, and yeah, I guess Rails just put it in automatically.
Yeah, it does. It automatically auto increments and creates that ID column kind of under the hood. But when you're using this designer tool, you have to like manually create that column on here and represent it that way as like as a column that you want for each table. So just something to note there, a little nuance.
Okay, And a question about the data that's coming in. After looking through the project, it's not like we're doing complicated like calculations on each row to get something. We're essentially just the focus of it is just to have a simple web page that launches that can target every individual element through some relation starting from the index, right? So I'm thinking like how many rows of data do we or is considered like good for testing and good to show that we understand everything through this project?
Yeah, so you're saying like how many like actual like instances rows of like roasters or coffee beans would be essential, and I would say like at least like 3 to 5 for
Okay.
a test, and like so that you can see that like okay, multiple things are showing up. Okay, like if I click on this one, I don't go to the other one's page, to the other one's show page, like things like that. So like not a ton, you don't need a ton of data to innate to ensure that things are working properly for this project.
Got it.
So for the schema, we haven't really had any actual like application. This isn't in our on the right side. The schema is from like a test file. Because we haven't got around to actually playing with it. I didn't get a chance to actually.
I had an issue that had me delete the previous repo and launching it again. I can't open any files through VS Code now too, and that just happened like probably 30 minutes before this meeting, and that only happened after launching this relaunching this Rails app. I'm not sure what quite happened with that. I don't know if that's a common thing, if that's happened before. If I could show it afterwards, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds like that's probably like because you like dropped one and created another, that like there's a couple things that can happen where the name of your directory is like duplicated, and so it's just not accessing the correct one and like not giving you access to the files, and or you didn't drop the previous database, so now like it's not sure how to create the new database because the old one is named the exact same. So there's like a couple of things that can happen if you kind of like get into this get into that situation, and it's not a crazy hard fix to like get out of. So
I'll check it out. But the concerning part is that I can't open any directories outside of this project through code. But
really? Yeah, through your VS Code editor?
Yeah, through VS Code, I can't open any files. I have to like manually go to the exact file and right click open through VS Code. If I try to do it through terminal, there's no directories on the side that shows like where it says open editors on the left where Joe's screen is.
Yeah.
No matter where I do open code dot in terminal, I've tried numerous files and projects, and it just shows an empty. There's nothing there. But
Gotcha.
I could open them manually. I'll check it out myself, but it only happened recently.
That sounds like a path issue, like the path to your code shortcut there, your command line like code shortcut is like misconfigured.
Okay.
Like, yeah, that's unfortunate, but also not a huge deal.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Try restarting or something. I don't know.
Or restart after that.
Yeah, it's like I would like that's like a classic, like turn it off, turn it on again. Like make sure you like go through the steps again to like add the command line extension and make sure like in your Zush RC file or whatever, like things are like configured properly and there's not like a typo in there or something.
Got it.
Yeah, there's like a couple of kind of checks I would do there.
Cool. Thanks.
I wanted to ask on the schema. I got to run through. I haven't like I said, I haven't got a way to actually apply this yet. But I got to run through on like how to have the relationship.
Yep. And it looks like you did it right, just so you know. Like on this, the way that this table is configured, like this is what I would expect to see. I would expect it to like be like t dot big int list ID, and then like indexing on the list ID, and then add foreign key task list. Like these are the things that I would expect to see if it's configured properly.
Okay. Okay. So that is the right way to do it. Okay. Great.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it from me. I just need an actual application to run it through the app itself to kind of create the tables and run this relationship. But yeah, I think that's it from me.
I'm glad that y'all like are playing around in, you know, this looks like task manager, and you're like, all right, let me see like if I can do this in this one. And like this is a great playground for you to go and try things in and like really not have any like consequences of like losing time in the project because like you had to like make mistakes or whatever. So I'm glad you're doing that. And like, yeah, this is looking good. I would say like start it's a good time to like go start like creating tables and seeing if you can like join those tables together via this one-to-many relationship.
Cool. Sam, anything else to
add? Oh, touching on what we were talking about, like how the data itself shouldn't be complicated. It's more getting the data in the right places and showing it and going through the whole CRUD process and using SQL through active records. The testing should be pretty straightforward, just checking if this proper element has a proper attribute, right? Like this is actually ID5. It's leading to the right link, stuff like that. I just couldn't think of like anything else to test for. But I guess we haven't gotten to testing yet either in terms of conceptual.
Yeah, we haven't gotten too much into it, so I won't say like I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because you're going to have like class, but like the way you're thinking of it is right. It's not that complex. It's like visit a page, make sure the information that you expect to be on that page is there. From that page, maybe click another link and then ensure that you went to the right place and the correct information is there. Like there really isn't a ton of like complex testing in this project.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
That clears a lot.
Cool. All right. Gus and V, what do you have going on? You got any follow-up?
I guess just a quick like logistical question. As far as like the database designer schema, do we need to like link that to our project somehow, or is this the time that you need to see that?
So I just needed to see it now. And what I would say is like maybe put it in like the README of the repo, right? So that like it's clear that, you know, that's like a good thing that you can have as like a reference to this project later on. I feel like the README would be the right place to just put it like a screenshot of it or something.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, V.
That was me saying goodbye. I'm sorry.
Okay. I thought you were like doing the actual physical raise hand. Yeah, and like the way that I like to run these check-ins is like I'll answer questions basically until you're out, but like you don't have to like stick around for the whole time. Like if you're ready to go, like you can bounce and that's fine, or like we can take the whole time to answer your questions as long as you have them.
I got nothing else. My first priority is getting my VS Code settled.
Yeah, that makes sense. And here's what I'd say: like if this ends up being like, I don't know, like I would try like the simplest steps first, right? Like restart it, check your path helper, like, and if those things are still things are still screwy, then I would like I would take maybe like 20 or 30 minutes. I would reach out in the code help channel. I would maybe reach out like a school-wide channel, just because many other people are having VS Code, and like if someone can just give you the simple solution before you have to go figure it out, that's a better option than taking the time to use it. And I would say if you end up spending like more than like 30 or 45 minutes on it, like switch back to Atom or something, or like,
yeah, that's always fired up and ready to go. Yeah. I was thinking about that.
Yeah, exactly. Just because like I don't want this to like, you know, cut into your time where you would be working on the project.
Understood. Yeah. Yep. Got it. Cool. I'm gonna get going to work on this. So thank you for everything. It was really
Sure.
clarifying. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate y'all's questions.
All right. Take care.
Yep. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome. See you guys.
Great.
All right, cool. So yeah, let's the things I wanted to check in on is like, let's check out your schema designer and what tables you've created. And then if you have gotten started on the CRUD action, let's see what you've got so far. Yeah, that's about it.
Great. Robert, do you mind if I share the schema designer and then we'll switch over and you can share the code since I think you have the more updated code? Awesome.
Sure, that's fine.
All right. Can you see my screen?
I gotcha.
Cool. I don't know how to make this bigger, so if you can't, I'm
That's
sorry.
good.
So yeah, we have two parent-child tables here. One of them is a section and instrument, like in an orchestra.
Cool.
So section would be like woodwinds, brass, percussion. Do you want to read through this or do you want me to walk through it?
Nope, that makes perfect sense to me. I just kind of
Cool.
like need to know that it makes logical sense
Totally.
and that the foreign key is indeed pointing at the primary key, which
Yep.
is what I see. So
The second one's somewhat related, orchestra, like the New York Philharmonic, something like that, and conductor. So you can have past, present. We threw in a Boolean here of whether they're the current conductor. I know we needed a Boolean. I know we needed, I believe, 4 timestamps. Let me know if that's not right. And we only needed 2.
yeah, so you only needed 2, but like,
Okay.
and they don't have to necessarily be timestamps. They just need to be date time columns. So like timestamps are valid, but like if you had a date time column that you decided, wasn't actually like, it- how do I say this? So like if one of it doesn't necessarily make sense except maybe for like the conductor here, or I guess you could
Yeah.
say the orchestra, you could have like a performance night daytime column or something
Yeah.
like that, right? That's like separate from a created at or updated at, and also valid. So you only
Got
need
it.
2. It's okay to have more, and they can all be
Okay.
timestamps if you want, or they could be something else.
Cool. So we only need 2, and maybe it could be so the orchestra, we could do something like the date formed or something like that, or for a conductor, the birthday. That's kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Cool. So we might edit some of this and just make it as simple as possible, but otherwise this all looks good.
Yep, it sure does. It looks good.
Cool. I think what was the other requirement? We needed an integer in all of them. Is that right?
I think you just needed 2 integers as
2
well,
integers. Okay.
I believe.
So Robert, let's maybe after this make this a little easier on us and just do 2 integers and 2 dates.
Oh, sure.
Or date stamps. Yeah. Cool.
Let me just make sure that I'm not like making that up because I can't totally. This is a new project, so I don't remember
Right.
exactly what it was, but like it matters for when you get to some of the queries later on. Integers. Okay, yeah. So you only need 1 numeric column actually.
Okay, so I'm gonna put a comment here. 1 numeric, 2 date times, 1 Boolean.
Yep.
And then all should have names. Cool.
Yep.
All right, we'll make those updates. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, that's like what I wanted to see there. Can I actually see your schema file in your Rails app?
Yeah. Robert, do you want to share that? We were just working on that and are running
Yeah.
into some odd things.
Okay,
Let's see. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, good.
And we only tried to make the sections table
Yep.
so far.
Yup, that looks correct to me. Let me just make sure that yep, that is the syntax that I would expect. So that looks good.
And basically we'll have to just do the same thing for all the tables. Just a separate migration and then separate migrate.
Well, you could, I mean, so if you look at how this stuff is set up, you could run one migration, right? That says like create table, that like the class is called like create tables. And then what you would do is you would go into this file and you would edit the file like within the change block. You would have create table sections, then you would have another do end block like create table orchestras, like and so you could do it all in one. I just want to say like that is possible, and
Got it.
it's probably for y'all right now just to make sure you're not like making a simple syntax error or something, like easier to do it one at a time. And then once you've created them, then you also need to run a migration to link the one-to-many relationship for each of them.
Ew. Let's Google that one.
Yep, and here's the thing, we're having a class on it tomorrow, so
Cool.
if you take a look at that lesson plan, there's an example there of how to do it, and it's also in the Rails guide, so an example of how to do it.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, that looks good to me.
Cool. Robert, did you want to talk through this error that we just can't figure out?
So I'm trying to think. So we have this error over here where if we go, let's see.
Yeah, let's look at that file.
Controllers. So this one seems to be okay, but then it's this one that is giving us problems, and we're not sure why.
Totally. So it looks like on line 9 there's an issue, and I don't see it just offhand, just to be clear. So
You think it's a copy paste thing, Robert? Like maybe if we delete the backspace all the way to line 9 and retype the end, it might work. I know when you copy paste, sometimes there's like hidden text.
I don't, maybe is at least in Atom, it's doing the auto indent, so it's recognizing the end.
Yeah.
All right, so let's try and let's try this. So let's just rewrite line 9 too.
Okay. So just that section. Was it section not find?
Yep. And then in parentheses, params, square brackets, ID. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we got that. Let's restart our. Well, actually, let's do one thing at a time. Let's see what it is. So yeah, let's run a. It looks like okay. So you're in the SQL server. That also could be a thing.
Oh, yeah, we also couldn't find our table in the SQL server, which is bizarre.
Okay. Interesting.
We created that table you saw in our schema, and then we typed in Rails DB :migrate.
Yep.
But then when we go here and we try to select, nothing comes up.
Yeah, so that's because you never did a colon, so it's still expecting, or I'm sorry, a semicolon, I believe, is like what it's still expecting in that query to like end that query. Yeah, now you get your error.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. So let's select that, Robert. I think that should work if we do the.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like a stupid syntax thing where computers need everything to be perfect.
That's a separate issue, but I'm glad we solved that.
Okay, so let's exit from this actually. So I think it's it's a little different here. It's like /Q, I want to say. All right, try \Q. Okay, that's what it is. All right, so now let's go to your server.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, so let's reload the page over on the right. Great. Okay, so
Okay.
it was something with the like copy paste or like.
Great.
So a lot of times when it's when like you're looking at it and you're like, I know this is right. I don't know why this is an issue. Like you just have to rewrite it sometimes, and I don't know why why it got screwed up, but something is screwed up in there that we couldn't see.
Okay.
We might have to do that with our model too, but we'll figure that offline.
Cool. Okay, yeah, and this looks like a good start for the CRUD actions. So I like what I'm seeing there. The thing that I'm a little concerned about now that I think about it is why that pry is not being hit. Let's do it again.
We're not in, sorry, we're in the index. If you do section /1,
yeah, I see. Yeah.
Then that should.
Yep. So.
And then we have, that's the error I was talking about, Robert. I think we have to retype again because it's not recognizing your headers.
Because this is the one that I did type out.
Command P and then show.html.erb.
Oops, not that one.
That's all right. I've done that many times.
P, and what was it? Sections.show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see how it's
I see what's going on now. Yeah, do you see the extra / and caret there? Yep.
Oh, okay. I thought I took these straight out of the.
Yeah, so it's still, even with that, you see how it's still grayed?
Totally. So a lot of times this will happen in your views. Do a Command W to close this window.
Okay.
And then now open it again. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay.
That's the trick. That's the trick on that
Great.
one. You have
Do you
to
mind refreshing on the right, Robert? I just want to see what happens now. Okay.
Undefined method name for nil class. So it looks like our section is actually nil. So when we passed, it's weird that you're still not hitting the pry though, I will say. That makes me think we need to restart the server.
That makes sense.
All right, so let's see. Still not hitting it. Interesting. All right, so can we go back to your sections controller? Okay. Let's take out that pry.
Okay.
All right, let's just type binding.pry there. All right, and then let's just reload it. That is weird. That, to me, says that the def show is like not properly happening somehow.
Maybe it's in our routes folder. We didn't route it correctly.
Yeah. That would make sense, actually.
Nope.
That looks fine to me. Yep. Sections show. Okay.
That's right.
Let's. No. Okay, so that's happening in show. Okay, cool. ID of 1. All right, so the ID is coming through. So that all looks good. Let's see. Let's rewrite the def show.
Okay. Oh, the controller.
Yeah, let's just put nothing in there. Let's put an end and then hit and see if we can hit a pry now.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like it's, yeah, okay, cool. That's good. Okay, so now I would exit. Cool. Cool. And yeah, the pry screws it up because that's the only thing in there, and that like gives you like a nil value, so that's like screwing it up, which is fine. So now, right, yeah, let's rewrite that at section and assign that to, yeah, section dot find and then params ID.
Rams.
Okay, great. Now let's reload and expect the error to be just something else, maybe.
Couldn't find ID
section.
one. Great.
That's good, because that's the error that I would expect here, because you just don't have one in the database yet. So you'd have to like
It seems like all the errors we had, it seems like all the errors we had, we just had to delete our text and retype it for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why that happened. That's like a weird screwy thing. I don't
Yeah.
know why it got like that, but like
Got it.
like I said, whenever I see something and I'm like, all right, there's something going on that I can't see. Those are like some of the most annoying things in like developing software. But like rewriting it is generally one of my first like attempts at solving that problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, what else? What else is coming up for y'all?
No, I had some questions. Some I answered in class. Like, could we just create the databases first? That seemed logical in this project, but I hadn't seen it. So we'll probably go and like create all our databases now and then continue building this out.
Yep. Yeah, and
question.
you can, yeah, just to like be clear, like that is like a separate task than like actually getting the page to display the data, right? Like you could do that database. You could do all your like schema design and stuff in isolation first.
Cool.
So yeah, that's fine.
And then another question I saw in the chat, a lot of people were saying when you work on something or create databases, your partner has to do it as well. It doesn't sort of, so we're in a, how do I explain this? We're in a branch now. If he pushes it to main and I pull it, will all these updated schema be on my system, or is that super local? Okay.
Yeah. So the schema you all share, and the migration files are what keeps that schema up to date, right? So you all share the migration folder, you share the schema, and sometimes you might need to like do a migration locally because you haven't done that yet. Once you pull down, it might be like, oh, like I pulled down and my partner has, created a migration and run that locally on their development database locally, but your databases are the separate entities.
Okay, so my development and test database is local. Robert's is local. The schema and the migrations, that's the same, and we just have to run them locally. Got it.
Exactly. That's what keeps you both on the same page. And the thing to remember still, though, is that the actual data in the database can also be very different, because whatever you create locally, that is just local. Like if you create something in the console, like that is local to your environment, that is something that can't transfer to your partners. So that's where like I answered a question in the code help where I was like, yeah, if you use the same seeds.rb file to create all your data, then you can and you don't go like messing around and creating things in your console, then you could then in that case you could rely on the data being the same, because it's like, hey, we both have the same seeds file, so that is creating the same data. We can rely on that, but that's not like necessary. It's just like kind of like a nice to have if you want the data to be the same.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. And then when we created this Rails project, we did -t just because we've seen that's what we've been doing. And we did -d PostgreSQL. We didn't do any of the skips, like the skip turbo, any of that. Is that going to be a problem? And should we plan on doing that just all the time, this module? Like every
this
time?
module, yes.
Okay.
And I don't know what those edge cases are that were in that lesson plan today. It's like there are some nasty edge cases that happen if you don't skip these. And like, here's what I'll say is like, I don't know when
Got
those
it.
rear their heads, but like if you get to a problem that no one else
Got
is
it.
having and that like is tripping you up, like hit us up in code help. And
Right.
also that's like something that is worth
Cool.
probably even asking like going up the chain, so going up to either to instructors or to like mentors or to like alumni. Like that's like a thing where like you're not going to get a ton of help from classmates or one mod up even because they probably haven't seen it.
Okay, but for the rest of this module, I'll make sure to do the -t, the whatever database, and make sure those two skips are always in. And
Yep.
then my last question, sorry, Robert, if you have a question, but my last one is, sometimes I see you guys do -d, open quote, PostgreSQL. Sometimes I see -- database equals post, like what's the difference? Are they the same?
They are different
Cool.
flags that point to the same thing, and the
Okay.
-d is just the shorthand syntax.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Robert, did you have any questions? Sorry, I kind of monopolized that.
Oh, no, that's all right. Yeah, I think that answers all of the
Cool.
things I was unsure about.
Oh, one more question. Did you know an Owen Hutchinson in Vail when you were there?
Not that I can like offhand be like,
Yeah.
yes, I know who that is, but it's
No
pretty
problem.
small. I'm like
Yeah.
better at recognizing faces, honestly.
For sure. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, thank y'all for coming with like a lot of good questions and some stuff to work on. Y'all are in a good place, so just keep at it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. See y'all.
Take care.